Is it too early to talk about Christmas? Today we're talking about German Christmas markets.
Welcome to Vacation Mavens, a family travel podcast with ideas for your next vacation and tips to get you out the door. Here are your hosts, Kim from Stuffed Suitcase and Tamara from We Three Travel.
Hi, this is Tamara, and before today's episode, I just wanted to jump on and let you know that I am hosting a small group trip to Portugal this fall for women only, and I would love for you to join me. I've planned a fantastic 5-day itinerary full of great experiences like a cooking class, an olive oil farm visit, wine tasting, a food tour, plus we're going to be staying at wine hotels. It's going to be a great time. I really hope you can join me. You can find all of the details in the show notes.
So Tamara, you had a whirlwind trip last December that I was very jealous about because you got to go see so many of the German Christmas markets, which is definitely one of my bucket list things. So I thought we would take a minute and do this episode and finally come back to all of our loyal listeners and give them some tips, because I think that a lot of people are planning this kind of vacation. So I know you will have a lot of tips for them.
Yeah, it was such a dream trip that I've been thinking about for a while, and it kind of came about because I was invited by the German National Tourism Board on a press trip to go to Frankfurt and see some of these smaller Christmas markets around there. And I was kind of like, hey, if I'm going to go to Germany for the Christmas markets for like 4 days, I want to stay longer.
Absolutely.
So I decided to stay like another week or more. I think altogether I was there about 15 days. And a friend, my friend Amanda, came and joined me. Sadly, at the time, we thought you were going to be busy. Otherwise, you would have joined me, but then your thing got canceled.
Yep.
But yeah, it was such a fun time. I think it's a really great girls trip too, because it's funny, like between like my husband and a couple other people that I know that are interested in doing it, all of them are like, yeah, my husband has no interest. So if your husband does, like, or your partner or whatever, like that's great. But if you want to plan it as a girls trip, it works out really well.
Yeah, that's how I would end up doing it, I think, because my husband has no interest in doing it, and two, he would just want to control everything I would want to buy. He'd be like, where are we going to put that? Do we need that? I'd be like, of course we do.
And he has German background too, right?
Exactly. I got to bring that German history. He does have, very strong German background. So, well, that's great. So I think that, you definitely got a lot of experience and you got to see a lot of them. Why don't you tell everyone, like, how long were you over there and what do you think is the ideal, like, time frame for someone to visit the markets?
Yeah, definitely. So I think I was there like 14 or 15 days. It's been a little bit. So now without going back and looking at my calendar, I forget. And I definitely did way more than what like the average person would do. Right. So like, people were like, are you getting sick of them? And I was like, honestly, they're all different. And so I didn't really get sick of it. I got a little tired of just eating market food, but they're also different. So it's fun to explore. So I would say, give yourself a week would really be ideal. Like you could fly into a city and just do that city and then maybe like a couple nearby. Like for example, I have a couple of articles on my website for like if you flew into Frankfurt, which is a big hub from the US, there's a number of them that you can do using Frankfurt as your hub and do day trips. And the same with Stuttgart. So like you can easily do that with maybe like a 4 or 5 day trip, but I think most of our listeners are from the US, and so probably will feel like me, like you don't want to fly to Germany just for 4 days, so you might as well make a week of it.
Yeah, I like the idea. So did you find that, because I know that for a lot of it, you rented a car, but are there any tips or thoughts about, like you said, you can go into Frankfurt and then maybe you just do a train to go out to some of the smaller little towns where some other ones are, and then maybe take a train to Stuttgart or something to go do a few more and then fly out of there? Is that kind of what you would recommend, or do you really think renting a car is the best thing?
So I think you have a few different options. I know that river cruises are very popular as a way to see the Christmas markets. And that's certainly going to be like the easiest because you would probably pick it up in like Basel and then go down to, I forget the route. Anyway, you're kind of going along the Rhine and you are making a lot of stops at little cities along the way. And you don't have to worry about figuring out where to go or parking or any of those kind of logistics. So I think The river cruise route is definitely good. The downsides I see with that is that these little towns can get really crowded. And when you're in like a big bus, getting off a big bus
Right.
coming from the river cruises, especially the river cruises all seem to go to the same one. So if you have like 3 ships in town, even though there may only be 150 people on each boat, that's still like a lot of people in some of these small towns. Like one of the towns that we went to when we were in France, we counted the tour buses in the parking lot, and there was at least 6 to 8 tour buses. And this is like a very little town. So it was like way overwhelming. So that's definitely one way to do it. The other way would be, yes, to go place to place on the train. Like our friend Carolyn had flown into maybe Munich or, another city and kind of just did more of the big cities with like a couple of the smaller markets. So Germany in particular has like a really awesome train system. It may not be quite what Switzerland's is, but it's like a really, really good, robust train system. So it's pretty easy to do that. The thing that you have to worry about is just what do you do with your stuff, like until you can check in, or if you wanted to stop somewhere on your way from one destination to the other, then you have to find somewhere to store your things. And I found that the big cities themselves have a lot of different markets, but they're much more commercialized in that like the crafts are more like imported things. The food is a little bit more generic. So you don't have quite the same charm that you'll have as if you can get into the smaller towns. For us, we decided to rent a car because honestly, driving around Germany and even France was like super easy. They drive on the same side of the road as we do here in the US, like just very, very easy to rent. And it was actually really cheap. I think I rented the car for like 10 days or more, and it was only like $350, which I feel like I can't do that when I go to Tucson for a weekend. But
exactly.
So it was affordable. It allowed us to have a little more flexibility in terms of when we left, when we arrived, if we wanted to stop on the way, leaving our stuff in the car, just like all of those little things. The only challenge with it is parking, because a lot of the smaller towns, like if, we weren't staying very long in each place. And so we wanted to be as close to the historic center of town as we could. And so that is sometimes like restricted to just pedestrian or just like hard to find parking. So you really have to look for a hotel that has parking, even if you have to pay for it or if you have to reserve it, but at least like they have parking on site or there's a parking garage nearby that you can get into. Like when we were in Strasbourg in France, it's the Christmas capital of France, and it's like very, very popular. And we were staying in the old town at this beautiful place, but I actually had to fill out a form because that whole like area is pedestrian only. And just to get across the bridge into that area, I had to show that form plus my ID to the police. And they actually made me like open the trunk and start to look through bags because they've had in the past, like some terrorist incidents there. So they're very protective. Yeah. So, there might be like a little bit more that you need to do pre-planning wise.
Wow.
But it was nice. Like, even though you can pretty much always take a train from one place to another. And we did that. Like we stayed in Strasbourg, took a train to Colmar, or when we were in Stuttgart, we took a train out to a couple of different smaller towns. You're beholden to the schedule a little bit more.
That makes a lot of sense. And I can see that there's pros and cons with all of those things. I would also wonder about, just especially if you're not comfortable with winter driving, because December in Germany, you probably had some snowy winter roads, which you coming from the Northeast is not a big deal, but some other people might have issues with that. They're coming from like Arizona.
Right. Definitely something to keep in mind. I did have, when we were down in Southwest Germany in like the Bavarian area, not actually Bavarian, but the Southwest Germany, we had to drive through the Black Forest. Yeah. And that was snowy and a little windy and mountainous. So, that was the one day where I had to like stay,
alert.
More focused. And I mean, I thought I wasn't focused before, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like,
no, I get it.
A little bit more like white knuckling, but it wasn't bad. It was just winter weather. Yeah. But definitely something to think about.
Good to know.
The other thing I will just mention about the trains, our friend Carolyn was there at the same time, and Germany decided to have a train strike.
Yeah.
And so she had a little bit of trouble. I think she came into Amsterdam and she was trying to get down into Germany. She had some issues. And the one day we were supposed to go visit this, we were staying in the town of Freiburg, and we were going out to this place called Ravenna Gorge, which is this really super special in the middle of nowhere kind of Christmas market under this old stone aqueduct, but you can get there by train. But I had reserved parking and we were planning on driving, but their train strike was that day. And so we had to like quickly switch around our plans to take the train instead. And so we had to figure out then a shuttle. So that's just something to keep in mind. Like strikes, do happen. And so having the flexibility. And the other thing was that my friend Amanda flew into Berlin and they had a huge snowstorm. And so she got stuck there for a couple of days. And we didn't meet in Frankfurt as we were supposed to. She had to take a train to like our first destination where I already was. And it was really, really stressful, like trying to get on that train because then everyone that had been stuck in that snowstorm, but at the same time, I don't know if you would have wanted to drive through that snowstorm, but just things to keep in mind.
Yeah. Just winter travel considerations, be flexible. And you just have to kind of be your own advocate if you get into those things and know that you might have to logistics some stuff out. So for you, since you did have quite the experience, do you have maybe 3 or 4 that were your top ones and that you think everybody, if they're planning one of these trips, you should figure out a way to go to those markets? Which ones would you pick?
Ooh, it's tough because I think we saw at least 14 markets.
Wow.
And that's like 14 towns. Sometimes each town might have multiple little markets, but I kind of count
and a
them
town
as
might
one.
be cute and the market might be just okay, right? So there's like a mix of...
Truly, like my favorites come down to the experience. And, I don't really love crowds. And so that really impacts the experience that you have there. And sometimes weather might as well. But I really loved this town of Trier in Germany. It's the oldest city in Germany. They have a really pretty old town. We stayed at this really cute hotel right in the old town. And it was beautiful and it was so affordable. It was something like $150 a night or something that. So like the whole experience was just really nice. The market, we were there midweek, which definitely helps, but the market wasn't crowded. It was spread out in a couple of different areas. So there was plenty of room to walk around, like bigger squares, not like jammed into like a tiny square where you're kind of like just funneling through an aisle. Mm-hmm. So that was definitely one of my favorites. Ravenna Gorge is the only one that you need to book tickets for and pay to go to. So logistically, it's a bit more of a challenge, and it only happens on the weekends. So you need to plan your trips that you would be there. But it's just such a special experience. You're kind of like in the forest, with this, there's a small little village there, but really you're underneath this aqueduct. You can sometimes climb up a hill to kind of overlook the market, but it was too icy. It was kind of closed, and we tried it anyway, but you really would have needed spikes on your shoes to be able to climb up the path. But it was just a really special experience. They uplight the aqueduct at night, and so they rotate colors, so it gives it this like magical kind of experience. And being there when it's just dusk, so it's still a little bit of daylight and then it goes into night is like the perfect time to try to get tickets for. But it's something that you have to plan in advance. So that one was another one of my favorites. I also loved when we were in Stuttgart. So first of all, the markets at Stuttgart are so like the stalls are so beautifully decorated. Like in a lot of the markets, you'll see these, kind of the classic wooden stalls, and they might have some, evergreens or some decoration like kind of under the eaves. But in Stuttgart, the top of the stall was decorated sometimes with like animatronics or just like really elaborate displays. So that was amazing. They have like this kind of incredible light show. There's a lot of different like rides and things if you're there with kids. There's even a big wheel if you're, looking for that for adults. And it just, there were a lot of different options. There was like an antique market, just like different types of little markets. So I really liked that a lot, except it was crowded and it was raining. So like eating, like we didn't really eat there because it's like trying to huddle under your umbrella is not so great. But the next day we went to 2 different towns. One was Ludwigsburg, and that is just this cute little town, only about 20 minutes out of town on the train, and it wasn't crowded. And we went on like a Sunday afternoon. So it was like really pleasant, sunny weather, and the crafts were like the best that I've seen anywhere. Like everything felt so handmade and authentic and just like a really local feel to it. So I loved that. And the food was really good also. And then next we went to Esslingen, and that was a really, really unique experience, but it was super crowded. And so I had a little bit of issue with that. But they have a really big medieval market. And so basically the medieval markets kind of make it, out like it's medieval times. Like they have rides there was like a hand kind of cranked little Ferris wheel for little kids, and like a merry-go-round type thing too, where the guys just run to get it going, kind of like you used to do on the playground.
On the old playground, yeah.
Exactly. But they have, like archery and, just different
fun
activities for kids. Like kids were like dipping candles. There was like a blacksmith and the kids were helping pound out something. And there's things that you can buy like leather goods and sheepskins and like knives and arrow, like just very like as if you were going to like a Renaissance fair.
A Renaissance fair. That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah. So that was like super cool again, because it's different,
Yeah, I think that's cool, that the variety, because with those picks that you just named, it seems like it would prevent what people were saying, where you go, oh, are you bored of going to 6 of them? They all start to look the same, but it sounds like there's, a way to make sure you have some variety. And I do know, for everyone listening, if you're trying to picture what Tamara's talking about, she did a great job on her Instagram. So if you go to Your Time to Fly on Instagram, you'll find she has stories and a lot of reels a little further down from December. But there's some great pictures of some of these things that she's talking about that I remember from when I was following along on her trip.
Thank you. Yes. And I also have a couple of different blog posts on We3 Travel. So one is our German Christmas market road trip itinerary. So that will give you a little bit about each of the places. Mm-hmm. And then I also did one for Frankfurt and all the markets around Frankfurt, and another for Stuttgart and the ones around Stuttgart, so that you could see, like, if I just did one city and did day trips, what would that be like? So I'll link to all of those in the show notes. And I'm going to work on some about like the food and a packing list and all that, but I'm not there yet.
Awesome. Yeah, well, good job at getting all that stuff done, because I think that's really helpful. I mean, it seems like they're becoming more and more popular. It's funny how that happens. I don't know if I'm just more aware of people talking about it, or if maybe our jobs as travel creators, we actually give ideas and it works.
I think it's actually, I think that's been a big piece of it, because it's definitely become more popular, especially like in the US and outside of just the river cruise market. So we had a Christmas market come to Seattle this year, and I actually wrote about some of the U.S. Christmas markets. And I'm, surprised, but the Seattle one, it was a paid thing, and it was very crowded. And I think that a lot of the U.S. ones are kind of like that. They just put you in kind of a park with fences around you, and you pay, and you go in and pay more. Wow. Yeah, I went to the experience in Chicago, and that you didn't pay, but it was super crowded. And I've gone to Philadelphia's, which I actually liked a lot, because that wasn't as crowded. Yeah. And I know Boston has some now too. And it's funny because Amanda flew through Boston. She visited a friend there once. So she, on her way, so she went to those markets. And then we were in Germany. She's like, there's nothing like the German Christmas markets. And I will say, like, I loved especially Colmar as a town in France. Is like, I kept saying, like, my mouth was just like open the whole time. I couldn't even believe how cute and adorable this town is. Like, I was like, that's not real. That can't possibly, like, people can't live here. This is way too cute. It was so amazing. But from an actual like market standpoint, like, Germany's where it's at, for sure. Like, it's just, they know how to do the Christmas markets. I remember hearing the stats, like there's 1,500 Christmas markets in Germany that have over 50 food vendors.
Oh my goodness.
So it doesn't even count like the small little towns. You know?
Well, and some of that food looked amazing. Like, your trip definitely made me want to go. I need to make it happen. I got to find someone to go with now. But yeah, it seems awesome. So now that we've talked about all the logistics, kind of talk about, to wrap us up with some of your favorite things from the market, and maybe some final tips for people who are planning a trip. So favorite foods, favorite shopping, and then any packing tips or anything like that people need to know.
Yeah, definitely. So the food, you'll see a lot of the same foods, throughout, but definitely there are more regional specialties. It's, a lot of food that you're eating on the go. One of my favorites was the Käsewurst. So it's like the Bratwurst with cheese inside, which if you've ever had like the Hillshire Farms cheddar wurst, it's like that, but like way better. And especially like they should be cooked over like a grill that's over like wood or coals, and like a big round grill. But there's just so much yummy food, like so much. And some of the things like I really love, and some of the things, were like, okay, like this is a little too sweet or too, something for me. But I think that's one of the joys of exploring the Christmas market, is trying to figure out like what foods were different. So they have like the spatzel that they have with all different toppings. I loved that. Gosh, I can't even think. And then also the mulled wine that I've had in the US, I never really liked the glue wine. And I was hesitant to like try it there, but that's what you have. It's like you can have a beer, but it's cold out. So you kind of want like, something warming in your tummy. And sometimes I would get hot chocolate, but they actually have white glue wine, and they have rosé, which was
so
probably my favorite.
That. Yes.
Yeah. And so like the red is much, it's more, I don't know. It's stronger. And so I really liked the white. And they also in the Frankfurt area have apple vine. So it's like apple cider, like a warm apple cider, but so it's hard cider.
Oh, it is hard. Okay.
Yeah. So that
I was going to say, with driving, you do have to take into mind that do they have any non-alcoholic ones? I guess hot chocolate.
Yeah. The good thing though is that what we mostly did is like we went, checked into our hotel, dropped our bags, and then went to the market. So we were staying.
Oh, nice.
We didn't have to drive afterwards.
Oh, good. Yay.
I think there was only one where I was like, okay, I'm driving. So like, I'm just going to get the juice, because they always have something for the kids. I mean, all of these markets are really very family friendly. So I know we just talked about it as a girls trip, but it's something that your family may not want to do a gazillion of them, but they have rides, they have games, there's, fun foods, but so it's something that, especially for the local families, this is what they do. They go to Christmas markets. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. So that kind of covers a bit about the food. What about favorite gifts or things? Because I know you brought something home for me. So definitely have to have space for packaging of items and getting stuff back home.
One thing I definitely recommend is bringing like an extra duffel bag that you can just, put stuff in to bring home. And I got you what they call like the Christmas pyramid. So it's like a multi-tier little decoration that it's usually powered by candles, and there's a fan on top that spins. I'm a terrible job of describing it. Yeah. But if you look at any of my pictures, you will see like the centerpiece of most of the markets is basically like a huge life-size version of this. There's like a fan kind of thing on top, and it's multi-levels, and usually it's like a food stand with maybe a bar in one of the levels or something like that. And so it's kind of very symbolic of the Christmas market, and they have all different types, and there's just you can find so many really nice like ornaments, just little decorations, things for kids, like, but then there's also like soaps and more
like craft fair, maker
crafty
fair.
Like makers. Like I went to one place like outside of Frankfurt, and they had a whole local artisan kind of market, and they had some really great things there. So I ended up trying to buy like a lot of like little, here's this cute little ornament or this little figurine or something like that you could like, wrap up and stuff in your bag. There were a lot of like good sheepskin kind of products, good knit things. So there's a variety. I didn't go crazy because, well, also I don't have a Christmas tree at home, so I don't have that to decorate. But I bought handmade ornaments for everyone in my family, so that was pretty much, I was like, I got you this in Germany. Here you go. So so you'll want to bring stuff back. So just pack that extra bag, and then from a packing perspective, like you really need to be prepared for walking around for a couple of hours in the cold. So like you need snow boots, you need like something that's waterproof, like a warm jacket, hat, gloves. I actually brought like an extra hat and gloves in case they got wet, but I ended up really only needed the one set, and an umbrella. And I brought hand and foot warmers, those little like stick-on things.
Hot heats. Oh, those ones. Okay.
So that was really good because my toes always get so cold. Yeah. Cold. So like that was really great. And when I was on that first little part in Frankfurt with the press trip, there was someone there from I forget now, but somewhere in the Middle East, and someone else from India, and they were just not used to the cold, and they didn't have like the hand and foot warmers, and so they were I felt really bad for them. I tried to share a couple, but I'm also like, I want to keep some for the rest
you're like,
of my trip.
What I needed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I wonder about, I've never tried the toe warmers because my toes always get so cold, but I've wondered, how do they fit in your shoe?
so they're flat. So you basically put them, you stick them because
Like
they're
under your sock?
sticky. Yeah. On the bottom of your sock. And
Okay.
then, so it's small. I always use them when I ski.
Yeah.
The thing to think about with the hand warmers is that those are usually like little packets that have, like something that activates with the cold. But it's going to go through security at the airport looking more like a powder. And so I was a little bit worried about that. He did, like my bag was pulled aside, he started going through it and he was like, do you have hand warmers in here? And I was like, yep. He saw him. He's like, yep, no problem. So they let me through, no problem. It's like, they know that that's what that is.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was just somebody being nice, but I don't think so because it's got to be TSA rules, that you follow.
And that was carry-on? You put them in your carry-on?
I put in my carry-on, yeah. Okay. I don't think you're allowed to put heat-producing things
that's
in
right.
your
in checked bags.
Bags.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that would be my tips, but it's a great trip. I loved it so much. I went to all of those markets. I really, like I said, I got a little tired of just eating bratwurst and some other things, but beyond, and I was a couple days, I'm like, give me a salad. I need a salad.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I just loved it. Everyone was different. And that was part of the joy of discovery of like, what is special about this one? And of course I did more than usual because like, that's my job to go and be like, we'll do this one and not that one. And this is how you do it and all that kind of stuff. But if you're interested, I would definitely say check out those links in our show notes because I have a lot of information about planning. And just final tip, definitely plan early because the hotels, especially in the city centers, book up really fast.
Good to know. Well, it sounds amazing. It's definitely staying on my bucket list after talking to you. So thanks so much for sharing. And we will come back with you guys with a new episode.
Yeah. And I think we're going to talk about some of your amazing African adventures, right?
Yeah. I think it's a good thing to focus on and talk about as people are planning trips. And that's kind of one of my bucket list things. So
it's certainly one of mine. We'll talk soon.